Right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to continue this little series of mating motifs from highlight positions in the Crazyhouse World Championships from 2021. And we're first going to do these interactive studies made by Kleerkast. We're going to do the set made for actually April 2021. And so we're going to try and solve these ourselves. This is the first position. And I can see straight away it's a smothered mate. You just smother the king and the knight delivers the checkmate. So we're going to go through these, and then I'm going to show you the moon mate and also some defensive ideas. So where you're not trying to mate, you're trying to defend. So let's get going on this. So here straight away it looks like we can just go queen takes queen and queen at d2 checkmate. So it seems like that's very straightforward. They will get more difficult. So this one I'm thinking, does knight at f6 work? So the idea is if you don't take it, there's the Arabian mate with our queen. And if you do take it, we take back. And if you take it like this, there's queen at g7. So there's a clearance idea. So that seems to work. Queen at g7 to finish. Okay, so this is Tsume against retarded platypus 1, 2, 3. And I think I see it because the king is in a box, so any check will mate. So you just need to grab that knight and deliver the check. And that's checkmate. Okay, Royal Maniac. We have a pawn, a rook, and a queen. Okay, this is more tricky, and I think it's a back rank mate. I think it's queen here, pawn here, and rook on the back rank. But I need to just be sure. So queen here, if he tries to run directly down, rook here is checkmate. If he tries to run here, then it's very easy. Pawn here, and rook here or here is checkmate. So queen here, he has to block. Say with a rook, that's the most challenging. Pawn here, and then he goes here. And then I want to go, yeah, if he did, yeah, so I'm not sure actually. So queen here, pawn here. Huh, not quite seeing it. Oh. And I'm wondering if there's some way you want to stop this happening. So queen here just seems, that's surely not right. And rook here, the king comes back. That's surely far too aggressive. So this seems to be the first one I'm slightly stuck on. So maybe chat has some ideas, but I'm going to keep thinking. Okay, let's see. So my hunch, hi there, the devil's in, pawn e3 first suggests the devil's in perhaps. So pawn e3, that's interesting, because if you try and run, just queen and rook mates. So pawn e3, yeah, he has to take it. So pawn e3, he has to take it. Okay. And then, oh, and then queen. And then queen. So you'd have to come here. And then rook. Okay, yes, nice one. So pawn here and queen here. The king is driven up the board, and then rook here is checkmate. Isn't it? Many moves lead to mate now. Try to find the fastest one. Oh, sorry. Oops. That's a bad mistake. Okay, so let's see. I want to stop the king running back to g3. I'm just not looking at comments for just half a second while I try and figure this out. So that's the most tempting. Then here or here. And the queen and rook should mate. Knight h4 says the Devil's Sin. I agree. Knight h5. Okay. Apparently there's a faster one. Okay. Okay, so... Oh, bishop here. Yeah, bishop here also stops the king running back. That will probably be faster because then we can put a rook on g3. And... Okay, well, surely that's going to be the... And how do we most quickly finish this? Rook here is checkmate. Oh yeah, so if he blocked, he couldn't block. Well, he could block. Bishop takes pawn, king here. Okay, so rook here looks like checkmate to me. Yes. Okay, so we got it in the end. So nice one, the Devil's Sin, because you saw the first move of that at e3. So this is that was Royal Maniac against Orlando Gloom, that last one. This one will Eskin against Fumitox, and we have 2 pawns and a queen in hand. So what do we do? I think I see this one. Yeah, I see this one. This is a classic knight and queen mate. So I'm just going to take it, and if he doesn't take back, queen here was checkmate. And now we have the classic knight and queen combination. Knight takes rook, and queen takes f2. The next one is Bughouse Knight against Schlimmstick. So we have 2 knights. So I'm thinking of ideas like this, and I think that works. So the idea is if we can ever deflect the bishop from h7, then queen here is checkmate. So just go knight here, and that's checkmate. But if you go bishop takes, it's checkmate straight away. So it's a clearance idea. You clear away this square because knight here is checkmate. So it's very pretty. The next chapter is the finisher against Blishmeshjord 69, who's a Dutch friend of Kleerkast. So Kleerkast is the one who made this study, which I'm working through today. So finisher, what would the finisher play in this position? With lots of diagonals. What I think he would play is something like bishop here. That's what I think. So the idea is if you take it... No, maybe that doesn't quite work. So is there something more direct? The Devil's Sin says not bishop, pawn would be better. So pawn, because you're not worried about covering this square, because when the queen comes on, the queen would cover it anyway. So your right pawn would make more sense. And if king takes, then we could have, we're just sort of just a few diagonals short of where we would like to be, perhaps. So the problem with pawn here takes, bishop here, he then runs back. So what about pawn here, though? Pawn here, so then he can't run this way because of bishop here check and queen here checkmate. So he has to take this pawn. That feels more forcing. And then bishop, and then if he comes back here, and again, he eventually runs. Okay, we want to be landing our queen on a square like this, so that he can't come here. So, we seem to be short because. Okay, so the problem with pawn here takes. Bishop here would be takes, and he's got control. So the problem with pawn here takes bishop here is he runs back. So what about pawn here? And I think that's right. to get, it feels like we need an extra pawn because we need like 1, 2, and then the queen. But we need to draw him out in order to get the 1, 2. So you're absolutely right. We can do that at some stage, but when? What about straight away? So queen takes pawn, but then rook takes. Does that cover anything? So I'm just slightly struggling with this one. So queen takes h5 is very committal if we're going to go straight with it. So, okay, let's think again. Pawn here, check. King takes pawn, queen takes pawn, check, rook takes. So now at this point we still have pawn, bishop, and queen, but we have a rook covering. Bishop or pawn. Maybe bishop's better because we're covering this and this. And if he gives us a rook, then great. But if he steps back, then queen steps back, pawn, and maybe this sort of idea. So, is it pawn at g6 and then queen takes h5? Or is it queen takes h5 directly? Neither. Okay. Great. Let's have a think again. This is tricky. So pawn at e6 was my first intuition, but I didn't like it. Why not? So takes bishop here. I like it because we're getting a bishop on a really nice square. And maybe then, okay, maybe that's the thing to do. Pawn at e6, then bishop, then queen takes h5. Ah, yes, then the rook is not doing anything. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So that way the rook is not interfering in our plans. So the point is, we can calculate this now. So this gives us the extra pawn we need for g6, and that should be enough. Okay, well, I haven't calculated it properly, but that gives us the extra pawn, and really this is the kind of thing you really need to calculate. So if rook takes, I'm going to calculate it before it plays out. So if rook takes, pawn at g6, king g7, queen f7, what's the finish if a move like king h6? So king h8 doesn't work because we can push the pawn to g7, king h7, promote with a double checkmate. So the problem I have is after the queen sack, what's wrong with pawn at g6, queen at f7, and then king h6? So I'm missing something. Maybe we don't land a pawn here. Maybe we land a queen here. Yeah. So if rook takes pawn, we land a queen here. The king steps back. Then we land a pawn. The king steps here. Then we go bishop here and takes here. Okay, so we do a slightly different mate. Yeah, so e6 as the devil's sin. We got some really strong people in chat, so nice one. So this move is actually covering g7, so we have to be a bit more careful now. Oh, I see how to do this now. I see how to do this now. I think I see how to do this now. So this, then this, then this, then, no, hang on, almost got it. This, then this, then this, then tick, takes, I'm so close. Okay, this, then I'm check, king goes here. I'm not showing it on the board, so I'm giving people a chance to figure it out, and I'm very close, but I haven't quite got it. So check, king goes here, check. That doesn't seem to quite work. Check, king goes here. Check, takes. I think I've got it, but it doesn't seem short. The devil then says pawn e6, and once he moves, checkmate with the queen. So pawn e6, and if he steps here or here or here, he's mated. And if he steps up, he's mated. Ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So pawn e6, if he steps up, I'm not sure. If he goes this way, then queen here check, and queen here is checkmate. So pawn e6, the problem is what if he just steps up and then steps here? So pawn e6 here, queen here, check, king here, and I have no more checks. So it's a really nice idea, but it doesn't quite work. So it's not pawn e6, but, and it's not queen g6 because g7 is covered, so so we can't continue. So it must be something else. Can anyone in chat see? I'm still struggling to see the fastest finish. So queen g6, king steps back. Oh, okay. So you're going pawn e6, king here, queen g6, king here. And if he goes king e5, what's the continuation? Queen. There's a pawn on e6 you put, so you can't go queen e6. So yeah, that's the problem. He's kind of slipping away. He's kind of mated here, but you don't have something to mate him with. So it's really close, but your pieces are getting in the way. So Andruha, who are you on Lee chess by the Andruha? This is absolutely right. Yeah, so this I saw, and you have a lovely dovetail mate, because if you take queen here is mate. Queen here check, here, and now he's really in a corner. But is there anything simpler than just taking all the pieces? So takes, and rook takes, knight, checkmate. I think that's it. Takes. Good job, white mates in 2 moves next. This is not, it's not rook takes knight, hang on, it's, what's the mate? It's king takes pawn, yeah, I'm struggling to see the finish. So you go queen here check, and then, no, that's not right. Gosh. Okay, we're going to have to look at the analysis board. Actually, I shouldn't look at the analysis board. Look, this is just ridiculous. Why can't I see the finish? There's a mate in 2 here. So if I go queen here check, king here, okay, I can eventually get a mate in something. That's a mate in 3 or something. So what's the mate in 2? Oh, you're Andre. Yes, you're strong. Good spots. Bishop at f4. Okay, bishop at f4 takes. Gosh, what am I missing? So easy. Yes, and the rook and queen cover these 2 files, so this king is mated. Okay, very nice. So bishop at f4. Simple. Which that would have been my first intuition, but I was completely missing it. So a really nasty mate there from the finisher. So if you just go, so were there other mates just out of interest in the initial position? Maybe. Computer doesn't see it. Queen takes h5. Yeah, bishop e6 is important. If at e6, black might even be winning. So really important. Oh, as well as pawn takes f5, you said queen takes f5. Okay. But then the king could go to g6. And no, it can't because... Yeah, I'm worried the king could go to g6. But, okay, so let's just look quickly at the analysis board again. In that final position, we're going to go check, check, pawn here, check, king takes pawn, bishop here, knight takes bishop. Yeah, we do need to take with the pawn because we want to keep control of this square. So pawn takes his checkmate. Okay, the next position was Jeremy Darm against Carrick Yalis. And if you want to mate a king, you've got to keep the check because otherwise we're getting mated here. And in order to mate the king, you have to see what are the escape squares. And what pieces do we have in hand? A pawn and a knight. So straight away I'm really looking at knight here, just simply because it stops the king from running back. So knight here is a very forcing move, and it forces the king here or here. If it comes here, we can always throw in a pawn check. Say pawn check here or pawn check here. Say pawn check here. But the king can come here. And then we have bishop here check. Again, another forcing move. And notice the knight is protecting this pawn, so he has to come here. And then we can simply... then we've got to be careful, because we could move the bishop with check. Oh, that would work, because bishop takes rook, rook takes back, and we can take all the blockers. So I think that works. Queen f5. Okay, yeah, sorry, good spot. Yeah, I didn't see that. Queen f5 in the last one. King takes, queen f5. Yes, okay, yes, nice one. So I think I've got this one, although I'm not sure if I've got the shortest mate. So my idea here was bishop here, and then simply just doing this. But now that he's just walked into here, I can just put a pawn here. So I'm wondering if that was really the shortest. So if king here, oh, I see, you don't put pawn at e6, you go pawn at g6, king g5, bishop h6. So I just missed that subtlety, because then the king can never run to h5. So what's the theme of this mate? Just checking out the escape squares, covering the escape squares. It's very important not to let the king run to the queen side. So the next one is going to be Einstein 314 against Zek. Einstein 314 against Zek. Okay, this looks fairly straightforward. We have a knight and queen in hand. We just need to get our pieces on the board. A knight here and a queen here. Looks like it's going to be trouble. He's got two options. Come down. And then I'm not sure. So if he comes down, maybe we go with the pawn and the queen. So coming up makes more sense. But then we go queen comes up. And then... yeah, if he comes up here, there's knight takes knight. So, but what else does he do? He has to do this. So knight takes knight, pawn takes, and now we have a knight in hand. And his king is here with our queen here patrolling. So a knight in hand. What should we do with our knight in hand? I think knight here, and then queen back here. Looks like checkmate. Oh. The whole idea was knight here, but got to be careful. So knight here then. So just get that queen on the pocket. So the point is, if he goes the other way, then it looks quite straightforward. Just pawn here, and queen on. Queen here is going to be mate shortly. So queen here check. Now I'm not seeing finish. That doesn't work. Yeah. Nice one, Andrew. Knight defends h8, so you've got to be careful. Pawn here check, maybe. So the knight is cutting this off. So pawn here, check, queen here. So pawn here, check, knight takes pawn, queen takes knight, king here. And knight here is checkmate, something like that. Looks good. And if he just does this, then this is surely checkmate. I'm just going to take a quick look at the analysis board just in case he ran down, just checking. Oh, queen. Oh, of course. Sorry, there was a very easy mate if he ran down. Queen here and pawn here, which I missed. And I was thinking at f7, and that doesn't work at all. So the problem with at f7, he can run and he can run away. So you've got to be careful. So knight, queen, and if he runs back, pawn here was key. Okay, Terra 87 against Alduto. So Terra 87 is black, and he's in check. So this looks like a defensive puzzle. He writes, if black survives, he wins. Find the right path for the king. This is a bit scary. So the opponent has pawns and queens. So what I'd say is you never want to step back onto the back rank, because then he's getting a rook with check. And this looks risky because then the queen lands here and then we're back on the back rank. So that seems like a bad idea. So stepping up to one of these two squares feels right. Or taking. Stepping up feels wrong because then queen here check and queen here is checkmate. So we have to take. Okay, next step. Do we take? Do we come back? And so on. We could do this. This, queen here check, king here, pawn here check, king takes pawn. This feels like we're getting mated. Queen here check. If we go here, then queen here. So we've got to rule that out. So we come back. He drops another pawn here. We come back, and the queen here mates us. So this is getting mated. Okay. This is mate in 1. That's too easy. This is driving us to the first rank. This is driving us to the first rank. And this is also driving us to the first rank. So I think we have to take. Okay. So just to back up, we took and we took. We took and we took. And we just because we had no other options. So by elimination, we had to take. Now here, if we go here, here, or here, queen at b5 is checkmate. So we have to go here or here. But if we go here, then we allow pawn here and queen here, and that drives us back to the 8th rank. So I think we have to step down so there are no pawn checks. Because if pawn check here, we can take it. Pawn here, check here. I think we can take it. Oh no. Oh, hang on. So if we step here, pawn here, check, and we take it, we get mated in 1. So what do we do against pawn here, check? Oh, we just step down. We just step down. He can't support a queen with that pawn. So stepping down is really good here. So just to recap, we want to step down and he can't put a queen on. We don't want to go here because queen here is checkmate. We don't want to take because queen here is checkmate. We don't want to go here because then pawn here and queen here will drive us onto the 8th rank. So it's one of these two moves. But which one? I'm worried about this one because then he can push and he's driven us onto h6 and this. So I think this is correct. And then there's no more checks. He's only got a queen in hand. If you let's just play this again fast. So takes, imagine playing this at high speed, takes, step down, and then cunningly going here and saying, haha, you don't have any checks. That's, to be able to play that at speed, I think is quite remarkable. But that's what Terra 87 had to do against Alduto, and I think he succeeded. So douches against Microsoft Chess 123. So we have two bishops, a rook, a queen, and a pawn. What do we do here? Feels fairly straightforward. We just want to put a bishop here, takes is forced, rook here, queen takes pawn, checkmate. So it's a simple drawing that queen up the board and then pushing him back. Draw and push is what I sometimes call it. And I would go queen, but actually maybe there's faster. Maybe bishop is faster. Yeah, because if you go queen, he can step down. Queen takes pawn, then run. So bishop cuts him, cuts off his escape, covers his escape squares. Okay, 264 Brock against Emirati. Straight away, I just want to take this. You can't take back because rook here is checkmate, so you have to go king takes. And then I'm thinking back rank. But is it? Is it a back rank, though? Because the knight is defending. So suddenly I'm not so sure. What will we have? We'll have a pawn, a bishop, and a rook, and a king here. And possibly the knight's overburdened, though. But still slightly nervous about this. Pawn, bishop, and rook. Not so obvious. Okay, so queen takes, rook, king takes. What about rook here? He'd have to block with a knight or a queen. And if he ever blocks with the queen, we can take, and queen here is checkmate. So he'd have to block with a knight. So takes, rook here, knight here, blocks. Is there something sneaky we can do now? Blunderman 1, sack the queen. Yeah, that's my immediate instinct, but the follow-up is what I'm trying to calculate. Sack the queen. Is it rook h8, knight g8? Then what? Rook at g8, knight g8. Pawn here. Knight takes pawn. No, I don't see the follow-up. Pawn at h7, says Blunderman 1. That is sneaky. Just say, oh, that's so sneaky. Just say my king is just so safe. In fact, that's got to be it, right? You just go rook at h8, pawn at h7, and what are you going to do? Yeah, that is so good. That has to be it. Rook at h8, and then just chill. How are you defending? That's correct. You're taking it. You've got a queen and a rook on the back rank. There's no defense. So it's the mate threat theme. You don't have to go for mate directly. If your king is safe, you can just find the mate threat that's unstoppable. Nice one, Blunderman 1. So the next one is Pepelu against Kleerkast. And we're doing really well here. We're on 15 out of 18 puzzles in this set by Kleerkast. And my hunch here is another queen sack. Knight here and pawn here, checkmate. That's kind of easy, isn't it? That's not too hard at all. And pawn or bishop to finish. So the next one is retarded platypus. And what's really nice about that is defending the hanging rook. Retarded platypus 1, 2, 3 against Sume. And we have queen in hand. I want this and then a double check and then queen here. But is there... How do we do this? So pawn here, king here. Not sure. Or the other one is just do this. Queen here, king here. No, what's the finish? Oh, just throwing this away here. Is how are we going to make the king on e8 is the question. So maybe we do want a pawn on d6. So this one. So my hunch is some pawn d6 takes maybe some kind of double check, and surely he's getting mated quite soon, but is he? Maybe double check like this, but I don't know. Where is this king going? I like that because it's covering this square. So queen here, check, king here, pawn here, check. Oh, hang on. Okay, so let's just calculate. So pawn here, the idea is that he has to take it because those are all bad. This is also bad, surely. Okay, hold on. So pawn here, king here. Queen here, check, king here. Bishop here, check, king here. How is he getting away? So pawn here, check, king here. Oh. Bishop check first. Block the escape route. So if he goes here, queen here is mate. So you'd have to go here. But then queen here is mate. Yes. No, it's not mate because he can come here. But that's mate. That's just mate. Okay. Yes. So pawn here is really attractive because he has to take it. Hi there, Krakenmeister. Oh yeah, so Krakenmeister sent me a wonderful mate in 21 by Twitch Whisper. So thanks for that. I shared it with the Discord. If you want to join the Discord, guys, so if anyone's not on it, I'll just share it. It's the Variance Discord. I shared your mate in 21 with the Variance Discord. People there enjoyed it a lot. So knight c and Krakenmeister says maybe you don't need a double check. That's true because we control these squares. So you could even go knight g6 to stop you from running back. That's true. And if he's running this way, then I'm thinking there's got to be a mate soon. So I'm going to calculate this one first, just because it is a nice double check. So if he runs back, then surely bishop here is mating very quickly. So I think he'd have to run up. Okay, and if he runs up, then queen here check, king here, pawn here check, king here, and pawn here is checkmate, isn't it? So I think this works actually. Okay, apparently it doesn't. That's not what they want. Oh, Andrew's noticing puzzle 17 was Bugzilla against Andrew. Yeah. So maybe you remember that one. Okay, so what was this one? Maybe just this. Nope. Huh. That's baffling. If knight here takes queen here, how are we mating? So surely it's not queen here, takes, king takes. What can we do with the rook? Not quite enough. I'm stuck on this one, guys. Okay. Yeah, the reason this is not so nice is because queen here, king here, then what's the follow-up? So pawn at d6 feels solid. What else could it be? So he has bishop blockers, so we don't want to do distant checks particularly. Knight g6? What's the idea of knight g6? So knight g6 just takes it. Queen here and steps back. And we only have one pawn in hand. Don't get it. So pawn d5. I'm not getting this at all. Andrew has his queen at c7 maybe. Ah, okay, yeah, that is an interesting idea. Queen at c7. Okay, that's a reasonable idea. So you block. Okay. And then we can throw. Yeah, we tried pawn at d6 originally. So pawn at d6 is not correct, by the way. Maybe that's not what you mean. Queen at c7 seems promising. Wow, that's not correct either. Wow, he's got us scratching our heads on this one. Like, what other move could there be? It looks like we've tried all the checks. What is the idea? So knight g6. Knight g6, pawn at d6. Knight g6? Oh, we didn't try knight d6. Why is this any good? No, but I can see how this works, because now pawn here, and we're threatening this and swing across. And then block the escape route. No. So I was thinking block the escape route, blocks, queen here, king here. No, okay. Hang on a second. We just got queen here and queen here. Simple. But I'm just very confused why that's the fastest mate. So let's have a look. So knight g. Why is knight g6 so good? Okay, so knight g6. The idea is pawn at d6 and queen e5, of course. And people were saying this in the chat. I just wasn't. Yeah. So yeah, nice one. Blunderman 1 and who else was saying this? Yeah. So why is pawn directly on d6 such a bad idea? King e6. Okay, and I thought here bishop here, check. And it suggests at d5. Okay, we saw this. Queen here, check. King comes up. And I see. So in my imagination, I had another pawn here for check. King came here, and knight here, checkmate. And I didn't realize my bishop's hanging, and none of this works. So it's a castaway theme. It's a castaway theme. We're throwing away our knight to free up the e5 square. Amazing. So cast it away, check, and wow. Okay, I really struggled on that one. So the next one is Bugzilla against Andrew288. And Bugzilla has a bishop and a queen in hand. And Andrew's on the ropes, it looks, with this black king. But he could take the knight and maybe escape. Andruha, well, this says time for PTSD, time for healing the trauma. And maybe he missed the mate anyway. I think I see this one. So you might think bishop here, queen here. Oh. And then queen here, checkmate. But bishop here, queen here. And I don't see a follow-up. So what I think it is bishop here. And if king here, you see we're taking control of this square. Queen here, check. Queen takes pawn. But if you take, takes back, and the black squares aren't safe around the black king. So we're in. So how do we finish it off with a pawn and a queen? So go with the pawn first. And queen here, knight here would be mate, but hang on a second. What if he comes this way? Ah, I see. So pawn here, and then the knight swings in. But then he could try and take that knight. So I want to bring this knight in, that's why I'm thinking. So maybe pawn here, so this knight is defended. That looks fun. So pawn here, the idea is if you step this way, then I have queen here, check, and surely, hang on. Pawn, check. If you step here, there's queen here, check here, pawn there, check here, queen here, check here, and knight here, check. Oh, that's surely checkmate. Okay. And if you go here, queen here, check, steps down. No, that's not quite working. Pawn here, check. If you're trying to avoid... Blunderman 1 says, put your queen first on c5. Ah, yes, yes. Oh my goodness. Queen first, then the knight, and the knight is protected by this diagonal being protected. And the knight covers these two squares. Oh, that's so nice. Okay, so queen, then the knight, but then we only have one pawn and he can step here. But then pawn here is checkmate. My goodness. That's a pretty picture. That's the sort of pattern you need to recognize, this queen, pawn, knight. Yeah, if only I could recognize patterns like this. That would be really awesome, wouldn't it? So you just see straight away, queen, pawn, knight is mate. Yeah, Blunderman 1 and Andrew both saw it. Nice job. Clearly I haven't got my mating shoes on today. We're trying. And finally, Terra 87 against Alduto. Looks like I can pick up a queen with knight at g3. That seems reasonable. I've got two pawns in hand. Is there anything more powerful I can do? Takes, king h2. Just grab the queen, looks good. Is there something more powerful than that? Okay, this has to be the first move. How would it not be the first move? That has to be the second move. How would it not be the second move? And I'm now just trying to think, can we just grab the queen and say our king is safe? Why can't we do that? That's what I would do in this position. Or is there something better? Nope, there's something better. Okay, I should have calculated. So if we take the rook, takes back and drop lots of pawns, then maybe we have mate. So let's try and calculate it. So it takes the rook, takes back. I mean, if you step back, then this is, sorry, if you step back here, rook here is checkmate. So you better take it back. Then pawn here, and notice the bishop is actually cutting this king off. So pawn here draws the king up. Pawn here draws the king back. Pawn here draws the king back, and rook h2 is mate. That seems to be enough. So pawn at g3. So it was a very simple mate. I just completely missed it. Pawn here. No. No. Another mate in 3 is what I'm told. Just bishop here? No. Oh, just pawn here. Yeah, pawn here. Pawn here, and rook at h2 is checkmate. Blunderman 1 says, knight takes queen, in my humble opinion, totally the best move. And Krakenmeister says, unless you're playing classical Crazyhouse. Yeah, but I think if you can calculate a mate, then you do, right? It's sort of. But you're right. So here. Black still has mate in 7, apparently. So it's pretty safe. But if you can calculate a mate, then I think you do. And it's pretty mate, so it is calculable. Okay, so that concludes this the April series by Kleerkast. So last time on the stream I went through his March series. Look away if you haven't tried them already. I'm just going to quickly zip through. It was a double take mate here. It was a discovery here, picking up an extra piece to deliver mate. It was a bit of a this seems to be the wrong way around because it should be oriented with black. Okay, we did all these last time basically. So I'm just quickly reminding, this is casting away a pawn to deliver the mate with the knight. This one was just controlling the squares with the king hunt. That was simple enough. This was Craze against StuDB. What did we do? We cleared away the h6 pawn, and then the queen came in and checkmated. So this is just quickly, just to give you a good feel. This is this should be the other way around again. Weird that it flipped. This is sacking the queen, and we have another knight in hand, so we have enough for mate, just about. Then we had a smother follow-ups. Again, why is this flipping the wrong way around? So there are lots of ways of mating, but this is the prettiest. With the bishop and rook in hand, just dump the queen on g2. Another smother, and again, why is this the wrong way around? I'm sure it was the right way around the other day. So you draw the king into the checking square, so you're winning the queen with check. To actually finish off the mate takes a bit of time because the king can go for a bit of a run, but you eventually get there. Now this, it looks like all of the black ones have been flipped. Okay, so you control the f2 square, and now you have a smothered mate, and there's nothing white can do. This was a magnet, draw the king into the corner and deliver the mate. Pretty simple one. This is a really pretty pattern. We have a knight, bishop, and a rook, and they work together very nicely. Rook here, knight takes pawn, and rook here, checkmate. And there were other variations of this. Yeah, but this is just. So what were the other variations? Rook at h8, takes, bishop takes pawn. Okay, that's not so pretty. Not nearly so pretty as this. Anyway, should I go through all of these, or should we get straight on to what I wanted to do next? This is a brilliant defensive move. Because the problem is black's just taken a pawn to put here. And then he's taking the knight with check next. Andrew says, I have a friend in another variant who always plays from the white perspective. Oh yes, this is what it is. You see, the moment the king comes down to d2, rook at e2 comes, and there are all these discoveries. So this is an amazing move because it blocks the check, but it also blocks this diagonal. And suddenly, after pawn here check, we can step down and we're safe. So amazing defensive resource. This one was a king hunt. We won the knight with check, and we just this is like the reverse, where instead of in this position here, instead of blocking with the pawn, he took the queen, and black does indeed have a mate. And the key move is this rook at e2, controlling this square, and it's all over. Okay, here, what do we have here? It's opening up this square, and trying to draw the king here, because if you come here, then queen takes, and this is soon mate. Pawn here, this is covered. So he steps back. You sack the whole queen just to get a knight here and a pawn here, checkmate. So that was a nice little one. So clearing away g7. This was black to mate. Very confusing why it's the wrong way around. So sacking a rook. Oh, and a smother idea, because takes and bishop here. So it's almost a smother. Okay, this was clearing away g2. Oh, this was a funny one, because we're about to get mated. g7, h8 are both under attack. So what we do is we just have to go all in. So we go knight at h3, knight at f3, and the reason we want to do this is so we can go queen at h1 and take that rook with check. So we've cleared away the defenders around the king, all with check. So pretty nice. Takes, and this. And now we can take this one and pawn here. This is every move. It's completely essential we do it the way we did it. So if I just turn the engine on here, like here, knight at f3 is actually the only winning move for black. So it's really, really sharp, this whole position. We come up with a discovered check, put the rook on. Putting the rook on the second rank is really powerful. It's a good principle. Keep the rook on the second rank and let the other pieces do the job on the first rank. Takes an extra pawn. That pawn turns out to be crucial, and finally gets the mate. So that was a really tough one. So Krakenmeister says that one was juicy. I think referring to the previous one, just drawing the king out through g7, the g7 clearance one. Yeah, because if you just hide away queen g8 is mate, so you have to take it and then just simply boom, and he can't take it because queen takes pawn, there's mates, he has to go back, and then bang, hits that one, knight here and pawn here. We've used up everything in our pocket, so yeah, pretty nice one. So back to chapter 18, 264 Brock against in a few minutes. We just did this. Huh, I'm confused. Okay, so this one, well, this was another clearing away things and just going all in, basically. So check. The point of this one was if the king, goes here, we're just taking here and bishop here. So takes, knight here. And the point is if the king ever comes here, we got queen takes pawn. So it's trying to stay away from that square. It tries to run. But with the pawn and queen in hand, we can actually just go all in. Takes, takes, takes. And we've got control of the back rank. Takes, takes. So that was that one. So some weird back rank weakness. This one was a pawn check, the double check, and then just pawns to finish. Very pretty. This is another back rank one. This mates and bishop here mates, but bishop at g6 is the fastest. The important thing is to stop the king from running out. So takes, takes, and now the king tries to run out. We've got an extra pawn in hand to chase it down. And finally, this was the final one in the March set, and it was actually from black's perspective, and it was a magnet mate. Draw the king to the corner. I think what was played in the game was this check and then this, but actually this check directly is stronger. Keeping the extra pawn in hand. Takes, takes, queen on the back rank, blocks, then use the pawn to draw the king out. Knight here check, the king has to come back. And what do we do now? Pawn here, interference, indeed, takes, takes, king has to come back, takes and takes. So very pretty. Actually in this position, knight takes rook, they're saying, I wrote also mates, but it's quite tricky. It goes king g2, rook at g3 is the mate in 4. Let's just have a look at the engine. And the idea is if takes, queen takes rook, and if takes, we have the atomic mate with rook and knight. So kind of interesting mate there. Knight takes rook. You have to find, knight takes rook. If you want to find the fastest mate, you have to find rook at g3, and then take this rook here and find this mate. So kind of hard to find. Okay, so those were the March puzzles which I did last time in Mating Motifs 1. What I showed you just today are these smother, simple take a queen to put on e2, simple clearance of g7 to mate, tsume. The king is already mated, it has no squares, so just take any piece and checkmate it. This was a king hunt, drawing the king out and checkmating it. This was a nice one. The rook is defending this square here, so you deflect the rook, and then we have a classic queen knight mate. This one is another classic deflection, check, check, and that was checkmate. And if the bishop took, it was checkmate. So that was at the beginning of this stream. And then we had this tricky one, the finisher. You have to give up the queen to get the extra pawn, then give up the bishop to get the dovetail mate. And if he tries to avoid, then queen here, pawn here, and after king takes, we'll do it hang on, what's the way again? No, bishop here, check, which would be mate unless you take it, and then you have queen f5. Very nice way of doing it from Andre. So just to remind you, this one was just another king hunt. That was nice. This one was just get the knight and queen on and you'll be sorted. Easy enough. This one is a very important defensive move. Just doing this little king dance with the king. So it's important to take. It's important to take these cookies, but then when you dance back, you have to try and avoid the queen landing on the 6th rank. You don't want the queen landing on the 6th rank because that would drive your king to the 8th rank. So you have to be very careful about that. And this one was very simple. Bishop here was the fastest, just to draw and push, I call that one. Okay, this is the queen sack and chill. Let's just chill. You can't do anything. This is the Pepe queen sack. Very nice. This is just the cast away. You throw away your knight to get control of the e5 square. Really beautiful. Very hard, I found. Then there was the Bugzilla. Take control of c7 and queen c5. Very pretty. Ah, just so gorgeous. The queen, pawn, knight working together. And finally, there was Terre 87 against Alduto. Take the rook, because with diagonals we have enough for mate. And this, you could almost like know this mate by heart. Just count how many diagonals do I need. Have I got it? So it is an easy one to calculate. Okay, so those are the Kleerkast puzzles. We've gone through them all, and I've also gone through a whole set of highlights I created. But we're just going to conclude this stream with some Crazyhouse themes we haven't quite covered yet. They are the moon mate, a few more defensive puzzles, and yeah, those two. So quite complicated themes. Actually, let's do the castaway first. So this is a mate that Kleerkast found against Blitz Bullet. So let's just try and get our heads around this one. So knight takes rook check he played. And the point is that if you don't take it, you're mated. So you do have to take it. And if you take it with the bishop, then what's the finish? So we've got a bishop and a rook in hand. I'm thinking bishop at g1. So the problem is we'd like to go bishop at g3, rook at h2, but the problem is the knight is defending. So bishop at g3. So it's not so simple. So bishop here, king here. Okay, we've got knight here, king here. So I'm actually stuck. What's the mate here? So we have, we've got two bishops. We've got two bishops and a rook. Okay, so maybe that's enough. So bishop g1 sidesteps. No, that doesn't work. So bishop g1, if he just sidesteps. Ah, I see it. I've got it. Yep. So bishop g1, if he sidesteps, you then go rook here. Here, and here is checkmate. Pretty cool. I'm just going to quickly just check with the engine if that's the shortest mate. No, I made a mistake because bishop at g1 he can go king g2. So that's how confusing this whole thing is. Bishop at g3 is the answer, because if he goes king g2 we then got rook at g1. Takes with the queen, king takes, and now we have a knight and a bishop. We put the bishop here, and the idea is, hang on, if he just goes king to g2 straight away, then knight here check and knight here check is checkmate. And if he goes to h1 straight away, then knight here check and bishop. Oh, we don't have another bishop, but knight here is mate. So that's why he can't go to g2. Okay, but he could go to h1, but then the same thing happens. Yeah, it's exactly the same idea. Takes, king takes. We want to put the bishop on here just to give room for the knight to come in to control h1. So he could go here, but then we do this, and whenever he goes here, we do this. So really pretty tricky. But so the reason why bishop at g1 is not correct is it takes away the square for the rook on g1. And if I do rook on g3, just can sidestep here. Ouch, I don't have anything. So you've got to be really careful here. Okay, so bishop takes, we've established, is getting mated by a bishop on g3, a rook on g1. Okay, so what about queen takes? Now, in this position, we don't want to go bishop on g3 because when the king goes to h1, we want that square to be free for the knight. So in this, and king doesn't have g2 to go to. So in this square position, we do want bishop at g1. The idea is if king here, we have knight g3 straight away. So this bishop has to be taken. But if it's taken, that's also mate straight away. Bishop at g3, rook at h2. So you've got a choice. That's so nice. Okay, so instead he must take it with the queen. And when we take it with the queen, we could take back the queen immediately, but even better is to go bishop here, check, king here, and then take. And the idea is, if you take it with the knight, or you take it with the rook, knight here is checkmate. So he must take it with the king. He must take it with the king, and then I want, if the king ever goes here, I can't mate with the queen because of this. So I want this square free. So what you actually do here is you put a queen here. Because if he comes here, knight here is checkmate in 2. So he has to take the queen, but taking the queen exposes his back rank. We've now got bishop here, and whichever way he goes, knight here is checkmate. If he goes this way, there's also this. But whichever way he goes, there's also knight to g3, checkmate. So let's just recap this whole castaway. You throw away your knight winning a rook, and then if he takes with the bishop, if he doesn't take, then the knight comes in with checkmate. So he has to take somehow. If he takes with the bishop, then we don't do that at all. Just delete that quickly. Yes, delete it. We go here, rook at g1, takes, bishop there, knight here, knight here. Very pretty. So he must take with the queen, and then we go bishop at g1 to try and keep this square free for the knight. Takes. Now, actually what happened in the game was this happened. Very nice. And Kleerkast found mate. Blitzbullet could have survived a bit longer with queen takes, bishop here, check, then takes the queen, he has to take with the king, and then the pretty hard to find move, queen at h2, just dump your queen under attack. Because you have this deflection and rook g1 mate if he doesn't take it. And if he takes it, then there's a very nice bishop here and knight here, checkmate. So that was just a beautiful castaway mate, very complicated sort of castaway mate, just about which squares you leave empty. Like in the original position, it's really important that these two squares are vacated in certain mating sequences. Okay, so now let's actually get on to some really much more complex mating themes, which you don't see that often in Crazyhouse. So this is the third in the sequence of videos I've done on this. So we've had easier themes leading up to this. We've had the magnet mate, where you draw the king to a square. We've had castaways and clearances, where you get rid of certain pieces on certain squares. We've had smothers and smother follow-ups. We've had cookie crumbs. We've had even an interference mate. We've had pins and basic chess concepts. We've had blocking escapes, covering escapes, castling to give checkmate, just piece coordination, and then the standard chess mates like the hook mate, coordination of diagonals and knights and so on. Now we're on to something really quite tricky, and it's called the moon mate. So the moon mate is about, in this position with the pawn and 2 knights, the concept of the moon mate is you want to leave an ammo dump which you take later with check. So here goes. You go knight here, check, and he has to take it, because if he just does this, then this, and this is checkmate. No, 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 it isn't. This is checkmate. Okay, so he does have to take this knight. Okay, wonderful. Now, I want to take that queen with check. I don't want to take it back immediately. So it was very important to dump that knight there, but now I want to take it back with check. So then I dump a pawn here, and that forces the king onto this diagonal. And then I'm taking the queen with check. So why couldn't we have done it in the other order? If, for example, I did pawn at h2, he simply could go king h1, and I have no more good checks. So it was really important to put the knight check first, then the pawn check, and then we take the queen with check. If he tries to run away, it turns out in this position a knight check and a queen check, and knight here is checkmate. So, and if he did this first, takes the blocker, and queen here check, bishop here is checkmate. So that's the concept. We're kind of leaving an ammo dump to be taken later. Is that clear? That concept, and it's called a moon mate because Moon found a Moon inane, who was a Crazyhouse player since a couple of years ago, but I haven't seen him much lately. Found a very beautiful moon mate in some Hand and Brain, which we were playing once. So this is another example. Antic against Craze. What do we do? What's going on here? We're black, and I'm confused. We only have a knight in hand. What can we do with only a knight in hand? I'm really confused. Really, really confused. So, yeah, really hard to calculate. You have to kind of see ahead quite a few moves. So you dump this rook here, and it's because you want to take it back later with check. Because a knight at e2 check, and the king is forced onto a square where you can take it with check. And so now he's doomed. Whatever he does, if he goes here, queen here is mate. And if he takes with the rook, then queen here is mate. So probably the best defense is not to take, maybe. But that's not a possibility either. Because if you try and block, then takes here, and knight at f2 is mate. Okay, so we saw two examples of this in the Crazyhouse World Championship. I have a study on Lichess with many, many more examples. So that was quite a complicated theme, the ammo dump moon mate. This is a very pretty one that Katas showed. If you want to find mate here, instead of finding something forcing, you just play bishop at g8 and say, I'm going to mate next move. And whatever black does can't stop it. There's no piece that can defend this square. And if he tries taking the bishop, this is checkmate here. So probably the best defense is, yeah, nothing. Bishop at h7, we just take it. Rook at h2, we just take it. So threatening mate, very strong. Okay, so now we've got a few defensive puzzles. We've got these two queens attacking us. How to defend? And maybe I can make these into puzzles so I can actually cover up the solutions if people want to have a go at them. That is not correct. This is not working nicely. Well, anyway, hopefully that's all. Okay, so how should white defend? So what happened in the game was something like bishop. No, bishop. You can't play with the bishop because then you can't block with the bishop because then queen takes pawn check and no, that doesn't work. So let's show. If bishop at f2, that turns out to be a mistake because why is it a mistake? So this check. So if we step back, the problem is queen takes rook and rook h1 being a problem. So you'd have to go king takes, but that doesn't help you very much because knight here check, king here, and we have the atomic mate with rook and knight. So you have to go to h2, but then we can just take here, takes, and the king is in a bit of trouble. Knight here and rook here, checkmate. And maybe if you try and block with a rook or a queen, that just delays the inevitable. Okay, so what is the right answer in the original position? Blocking with the bishop isn't right. What is the right answer? Turns out the right answer is stepping to h1 because black doesn't have a pawn in hand. If he had a pawn in hand, he could take the rook with check and it's all over. But he doesn't. The king on h1 is super safe. So that's an amazing defensive resource that was missed in Kleerkast against Dog Answer. Okay, the next one is Kleerkast against PKNM. Where should that king go? So if the king steps up, then knight takes f2, and if comes back, then a new knight here and a pawn on h2 is mate. So king h3, knight takes f2. If the king steps up again, then knight at f5, king steps up again, and bishop here is checkmate. So king h3 is a bad idea. What about king h? So what's correct? King h1 or king g1? And maybe let's see if someone in chat. We could have a poll. Can we have a poll? Okay, so what should white play here? And should it be king h1 or king g1? And we're going to make a 1 minute poll for people to calculate and have a nice think. So we've calculated king h3 is a bad idea because of knight takes h3, and if the king comes up, knight at f5, king comes up, bishop at g3 is mate. King h3, knight takes, if king comes back, no, sorry. King h3, knight takes, if king comes back to h2, new knight on h2, king here, and pawn here is checkmate. So the question is it king h1 or king g1? Let's have a little calculate. So if we go there, then trying to figure this out myself. This check took. We only got one diagonal. Yeah, so as black, we only have one diagonal. So we have 100% vote for king h1. Right, I think you're right, because if king g1, there's bishop here, check, king here, knight takes pawn, check, forcing king takes bishop, and we've collected an extra pawn, is the point. Knight here, check, king comes back, and with that pawn we deliver mate. Okay, but king h1 looks just as dangerous because we're losing a second pawn with check. So it's really important we get the next move right. Ooh, king g1 after that. If we go to h2, we'd just walk into the same trouble. So king g1, and the point is that if now at h2, we're just walking away with that knight. So the whole we've just escaped the whole trap. So nice one. Andrew, you saw it. King g1, bishop h2, king h1, knight takes f2. Yeah, you gave the line. Yeah, really nice one, Andrew. I think it's a really pretty puzzle. I really like this puzzle. Yeah, so king h1, you allow this check, and then you run. And then you come and go eat up the knights. Okay, we only got 2 more puzzles to go. One is Marmotta della Alpi against Esken. We're in check. What should we do? We could take the knight. Taking the knight looks reasonable. Looks very reasonable. But the opponent, black does have a bishop in hand, so you could put a bishop here, stop us from going to f3. So we'd have to come forward again. Ooh. Ooh. Because then he could come queen here. Oh no, we can't. No. Okay. So if we go king takes knight, he could probably go f5. Bit worrying. Andrew says, if only I wasn't too lazy to calculate those in games. So I'm wondering, is it just king f3 just because there aren't any checks? But then there are checks. There's pawn here check, which looks lethal. I don't know. I'm like, should we have another poll on this? So basically, is it king f3 or king takes g4? And I'm going to try and figure this one out. So what should white play? King f3 or king takes g4. Okay, so it's going to be, I'm sorry we're not doing any channel points or anything today. I'm not sure how those work exactly. But let's have a let's start that one. And okay, got 1 minute. Going to try and calculate this quickly. So if this, what about pawn here? Takes, bishop takes. That looks dangerous because we're getting another bishop in the attack. King takes knight. Pawn here, king here. Okay. I'm still struggling. King here, pawn here. But what if we just take the knight then? And then just run. I would not get this right in a game. Okay, so look. The dark squares black seems to have under control for the moment. So it's all about the light squares. So if we take this knight, could we just keep on running? But if we come here, the thing is pawn here doesn't seem to work because we could just take this anyway. I'm so stuck. Let's see. The poll has ended. What are the results? No one has any opinions either way. It's too difficult. Okay, let's just look at the answer. So if king f3, and I'm going to show the answer on the screen. Let's take away this. It turns out black has mate here, but only with one move. Knight e5 check, casting away the knight, which I just didn't even contemplate. Okay, bishop at h5. Can't we just block it? And then at e4. Oh, that is mean. And if you take the knight immediately, then sure, you can go f5, just run. Bishop at h4, just run. You could take a rook with check. Really neat, just block off that queen. He has nothing. Yeah, I'm sorry, Andrew. That was wow, Andrew, you saw knight e5. Amazing. Because I was just seeing king f3 and doing pawn here immediately, and then why can't we take the knight? So what's the problem? So this resource of knight e5, throwing that knight away, and then bishop here blocking it off, and then this is mate. That's amazing. Okay, and the final one, Antic against Craze. What do we do here? Our king is checked. We could go king here, we could go king here, or we could take the bishop. And maybe I'll just show this one. Thanks, Pepe, for the raid. Unfortunately, this final puzzle, I've got the answer revealed, so I can't make it a poll. So let's just go through this. Let's go through the options. Thanks, Pepe, for the raid. Appreciate it. So we're actually just on the final puzzle for today. But it's a good one, I think. So Antic's got three choices. He can go king here, or rook takes bishop, and he has to calculate them all to the end to see what to do. So why can't you just take the bishop? So you can't take the bishop because then he takes the rook with check. And if you take that queen, you're letting your opponent have a rook on the 7th rank, which is usually a bad idea. Rook here, knight here check, king here, rook takes pawn check, king here, and knight here checkmate, for example. Maybe there was something even quicker, but that seemed to work. So taking back with the king is not an option. So taking back with the rook seems like a sensible thing to do. And then he has a knight and a rook in hand. Well, this is hard to see. Knight at f8, just because he wants to put a rook on the 2nd rank so badly. Because if you take it, you get your rook on the 2nd rank, and it's all over. You pick up an extra pawn, and with a couple of knights, you've got the mate. Or you could mate with the pawn. So you can't take it. So you have to run, but that still allows a rook on the 7th rank. Well, you don't want to go here, because otherwise you have the same problems. Takes, and knight here checkmate. So instead, let's try and run up. And now white only has a knight in hand, so he has to be very precise. So it turns out knight at a4 is mating for white. Because of king b5. Again, there's only one move mating here. So rook here check doesn't work. Some knight here check doesn't work. You have to go pawn here check. And the idea is we're controlling the A file. So this is controlled, this is controlled, this is controlled, and the idea is a back rank mate along the A file. So imagine all the way back here, we have to calculate, yep, taking this is a bad idea because basically white has this amazing move, knight at f8, which allows him to get a rook on the 7th rank. And with the rook on the 7th rank, he can create a back rank on the B file and then get a mate along the A file. Pretty tough stuff to see that. So that's why maybe you think, okay, I won't take that bishop, I'll go king to c7. And that doesn't work either because of knight at e6, and that suddenly mines the c8 square and the b6 square. Sorry, it doesn't mind those two squares. Those are the two options. It mines the b7 square, because if we ever go to b7, we're losing the rook with check. So we only got two good options, because otherwise we're losing the rook with check, and that's, as we've seen, that's probably a bad idea, because the rook will land on the 7th rank potentially, or in this case, maybe that's not even the issue. Knight here check, king b6. Yeah, well, it'll land rook b7, king a5, and we've got two rooks in fact. So rook here is checkmate. So it's a bit too easy, basically. So we know we got two options for the king, and if we step down, okay, with a knight in hand, what do we do? I'm thinking this maybe, or new knight. Take the again. Yeah, new knight forces the king here. Take the rook, and then put the bishop on this really powerful square. And if the king steps down, rook here is checkmate. And if the king steps up, then you bring your knights in, and rook here is not checkmate yet, but takes, and rook here is checkmate. Okay, so all the way back here, we don't want to. Maybe we try running up, but then knight here check, then again we're taking the rook with check. Okay, so knight here check, we can't help. We don't want to do this, because then there's also a discovery. So we're trying to avoid certain mined squares, which are really dangerous. So this and this are mined squares. So I should mark this one as well as being mined, because there's a knight takes rook discovery. So check, king here, and this check forces the king onto this square here. And now we take the rook with check. Bishop takes a key for square. Rook. Ooh, so it looks like we don't quite have enough for mate, because there's no good knight check. But it turns out takes, knight here check, and we just have a mate. Knight here check, takes. There's a quicker mate, which is knight d7, but you don't want to play knight d7 when you can have like the two knights mate. That's just too pretty. So the two knights control all of these squares, and the bishop and the knight really work well together when they're on the same squares, because the knight controls the dark squares and the bishop controls the light squares. So imagine in this initial position here, thinking, nah, I can't take this because then I'm losing a rook on the 7th rank, and nah, I can't go to c7 because then there's this and I'm losing the rook with check, and I'm going to get mated because of some really devious mate. And so what you do is you play king c8, and the game it's not all over, because white can still go knight e7 check, and as long as you don't go to b7 you're okay, because b7 allows bishop c6, king a6, knight at b4, and you're finding yourself in a bit of, if there, knight at c4 is mate, so you're being driven down, knight at c4, king c7, knight a6. Those knights are taking over, the knight and bishop working together. So as long as you don't go to b7, you're okay. So for example, king here, knight here, the knights don't coordinate well enough. You can have a single knight check, but there's not quite enough. Here, for example. Or knight here, then you try and, yeah, you can also go to a6 or a5. You could probably just run for it. Just running for it just about works. So yeah, black gets a mate. So very important defensive move in this position, really hard. Do you go, do you go rook takes bishop, or king c7, or king c8? And the answer is king c8. So really tough calculation there that Antic had to do against Craze, not against Crazy. That's some autocorrect. Okay, so we finished with some defensive puzzles, and that concludes this series on mating motifs from the 2021 Crazyhouse World Championship. Now, for sure, we're only halfway through the candidates. For sure, we're going to have more mating motifs in the remaining 30 plus matches to play, but that will be another stream. So have a good Wednesday night, and if there's anyone you'd like to recommend I raid, then let me know in the chat. Otherwise, let me just okay, any recommendations? Let's see who's streaming on Lichess. So I have Epiphany, St. Louis Chess Club, Goldust Tory. Okay, let's give Epiphany a raid. Just bear with me. We're going to raid Mary Chess. Okay, have a good Wednesday night. Is it Wednesday today? Yeah. Have a good Wednesday night, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy the rest of your week. And as I said, at the end of the candidates, maybe we'll see some more fun mating motifs. Thanks everyone for watching.